Hi everyone, today I'm going to be reading you a story called Alexander and the Magic Mouse, written by Martha Sanders and pictures by Philippe Fix. There was once an old lady who lived in a house on top of a hill. It was the only hill for miles around. At the foot of the hill was the river, and on the other side of the river there was the town. After that, as far as the eye could see, there was only the great empty prairie. The old lady was never lonely, for she lived with her animal friends. A brindle London squatting cat, a magical mouse, an alligator from China, and a yak. You may think that this is a strange household, but they all got on very well together. It is true that the brindle London squatting cat, when he was not squatting in the sun on the doorstep, spent a great deal of time thinking about how to catch the magical mouse. But the magical mouse just made herself invisible and never got caught. Each day, the old lady put out magical mouse food for the magical mouse, and each day the brindle London squatting cat got ready to catch her. But the magical mouse just made herself invisible for so long that the brindle London squatting cat had really forgotten what to look for, and he always fell fast asleep in his hiding place. Alexander the alligator had a mirror which the old lady had given him, and he liked to walk back and forth slowly in front of it, so as to admire his smile. His smile was almost 3 feet long. It took quite a while to admire it enough. On warm days, Alexander would waddle down the hill to the river and go for a swim near a sign the old lady had put up. It said, "Beware the dangerous alligator." That was to keep people away. Alexander was not dangerous at all, but the old lady did not want him to frighten anyone. There are many people who cannot tell the difference between an alligator who's smiling and an alligator who's not smiling. But Alexander always hoped that if he smiled enough, people would understand how much he liked them. Sometimes when he was swimming, he would poke his head above the water and smile beautifully in case anyone should be near. But the few people he saw always cried, "Help!" and ran away. That made Alexander very sad. As for the yak, she was a lady yak and gave each day a quart and a half of yak milk, which was very rich and sweet and could be made into yak butter and yak cream. As everyone knows, the Tibetans always put a little yak butter in their tea to improve the flavor. But the yak romped in the orchard and galloped up and down the hill. In the summer, she always brought the old lady a lovely fly swatter, which she always braided from the long hairs of her tail. And the magical mouse, she came with the house. She had always been there. The animals all loved the old lady dearly. In her youth, the old lady, who was then a young lady, had been a great traveler. She went to many far lands. From each of her favorite places, she wanted to bring something home. Not just a souvenir, but something really interesting and beautiful. So she asked the brindle London squatting cat if he would come from England, and the alligator if he would come from China, and the yak if she would come from Tibet. And so the friends all lived together along with the magical mouse. Each afternoon at 5, the old lady rang a small shiny bell. Tea was served. All the animals came into the drawing room and sat down and had tea and cakes and told what was happening that day. The brindle London squatting cat had to promise not to try to catch the magical mouse during tea time. All the same, the magical mouse made herself invisible, and she never took chances. The old lady would put a bit of cake on the table near the knitting basket, and presently it would be gone. Sometimes, as the cake was disappearing, the brindle London squatting cat would forget herself and raise his paw over the place. Then the old lady would look at him disapprovingly and say, "Now, now," and he would put his paw down again, frowning. One fine afternoon in May, as they had just sat down to tea and the old lady was about to ask them to tell their adventures, a tiny voice came from the knitting basket. Everyone was very surprised, for the magical mouse was shy and never spoke unless she had something very important to say. They waited in silence. Then the magical mouse squeaked, "It is going to rain for 30 days and 30 nights. My tail tells me so, and my tail is never wrong. We must get ready." The old lady got up and went to the window. There was not a cloud in the sky. "Are you sure?" she asked. "My tail tells me so, and my tail is never wrong," said the magical mouse, and that was all she would say. Her feelings were hurt. She refused to tell when the storm would begin. "Let us think," said the old lady, sitting down again. "We must have plenty of wood to burn, and plenty to eat, and a great many books and games to amuse ourselves with." Then they all bustled about. The alligator brought in logs of wood from the woodpile. The yak dug up a supply of vegetables from the garden. The old lady looked in all the cupboards to be sure that there was plenty of flour and molasses and marmalade and strawberry jam, pickled watermelon, and ginger tea. Everyone worked very hard except the brindle London squatting cat, who finished his cake and went to sleep. That night they went to bed feeling snug and safe and rather excited. They had gotten ready just in time, for very early the next morning it began to rain gently. By lunchtime the drops were coming down hard and fast. They built a cheerful fire, and the old lady read sea stories out loud. It was like a holiday. From time to time they looked out the window at the gray sky, rain falling and falling. What a splendid storm! They felt adventurous themselves, as if the house were a tall old ship that they were bravely keeping afloat. But in the middle of the night, the old lady suddenly got up and lighted a candle and went downstairs to the drawing room. "Magical mouse, magical mouse," she whispered from between the sofa cushions. From between the sofa cushions came a sleepy squeak. "Magical mouse, do you suppose they know down in the town that it is going to rain for 30 days and 30 nights? Surely the river will flood over its banks and wash the town away, unless the people try to stop it." "Nobody knows but us," said the magical mouse, and that was all she would say. A tiny snore came from between the sofa cushions. The old lady shook her head in a worried way as she tiptoed back up the stairs. "We must warn the people in the town," the old lady said the next morning at breakfast. "For surely if it rains for 30 days and 30 nights, the river will flood over its banks and wash the town away." Quickly she put on her knitted snood and her red flannel leggings with brass buttons and her black rubber galoshes. She got out her imitation fur muff and her umbrella and went out the door. But soon she was back. "Too slippery," the old lady said. "You could write a note," said the yak, "and I'll go. I can run down the hill in any weather." Yes, a note to the mayor," said the old lady. She wrote, "Dear Mr. Mayor, I am very sorry to tell you that it is going to rain for 30 days and 30 nights. Surely the river will flood over its banks and wash the town away, unless you can think of how to stop it. Sincerely yours, the old lady on top of the hill." The yak took the note in her teeth and trotted out the door, but soon she was back. "The bridge is washed out," said the yak, "and I can't cross the river." "Then I'll go," said Alexander, "for I can swim any river." "Be very careful, Alexander," said the old lady. She put the letter in his mouth, and off he went. He slid down the muddy hill on his stomach right into the river. He began to swim, holding his head up high so the letter would not get wet. The river was twice as wide as usually, and the water was dirty and cold. Alexander swam as hard as he could, but the river was terribly strong.